My mom told me, "You're old enough to stay home alone," and ditched me on my 18th birthday for a Los Angeles trip with her new husband and kids. Then I inherited my father's house and business. Now I finally kick them out. Hey guys, I never thought my 18th birthday would play out the way it did. My mom left me behind to take her new husband and kids to Los Angeles, like I wasn't even part of the family. What she didn't realize is that the same day, I officially inherited my dad's house and business. When they came back bragging about their trip, I handed them a reality check they didn't see coming. Here is how it all started. I, Liam, just turned 18 not too long ago. And looking back, my life hasn't been the easiest. My dad passed away when I was 10. He wasn't rich, but he was hardworking. He left me two big things: the house we lived in and his small auto repair shop. When he died, both the house and the shop went into a trust. My grandparents were put in charge of the legal and financial side, keeping the business afloat, paying taxes, making sure everything would still be there when I turned 18. Meanwhile, my mom lived in the house with me and handled the day-to-day parenting. At least, that was how it was supposed to work. When I was 12, my mom remarried. That's when everything shifted. Her new husband moved in with his two kids, Ethan, who was a year younger than me, and Lily, who was around 7 back then. At first, I thought maybe this could be good. I figured maybe we'd be one big family, but I learned real fast that I wasn't going to be part of that family the way I hoped. Ethan and Lily always got the new clothes, the fancy backpacks for school, the nice birthday gifts. I'd get maybe a shirt or a pair of shoes, nothing special. I didn't complain at first because I thought maybe money was tight, but then I'd see my mom drop cash on stuff for them while brushing me off. By the time I hit high school, it wasn't even subtle anymore. They started cramming my room with Lily's toys and random junk until it felt like a storage closet. A little later, my mom handed that room to Ethan. He's the older of the two stepkids and needs space. And then I got pushed into the tiny back office that wasn't even meant to be a bedroom. The only people who seemed to actually care were my grandparents. They were the ones making sure I had what I needed for school, making sure there was food in the house, checking up on me all the time. They were also the ones keeping my dad's auto shop afloat. They didn't run it at full capacity, but they hired a couple of mechanics part-time just to keep the doors open and the reputation alive. They told me they wanted it to still be there when I was old enough to decide what I wanted to do with it. Every now and then, they'd take me by the shop. I'd look at the sign with my dad's name on it, the tools lined up, the smell of oil and rubber, and I'd feel proud. That was his blood and sweat, and one day it would be mine. Meanwhile, in the house, I was basically the outsider. My mom went from being my parent to being more like a stranger who happened to live with me. She was always on Ethan and Lily's side. If they had an issue, it was a crisis. If I had an issue, it was brushed off. She went to their soccer games and school plays, but when I had things going on, she always had some excuse not to show up. It wasn't like she was screaming at me or hitting me or anything like that. It was more that she just didn't care. Unless she needed me to babysit Ethan and Lily or do chores. Then suddenly, I mattered. From the start, Ethan made it clear he wasn't interested in being friends. He was about a year younger than me, but he acted like he had seniority because of how my mom treated him. He'd brag about how my mom bought him a new phone or how she helped him with homework, while I had to figure things out on my own. If I ever called him out on anything, my mom would jump in and tell me to be the bigger person. Lily was younger, but she caught on fast. She figured out she could get away with almost anything. She'd leave her toys all over the house, and if I asked her to pick them up, she'd run to my mom and say I was being mean. Then I'd get chewed out. It got to the point where I just stopped saying anything and cleaned around them. The weird part was watching my stepdad act like the house was his. He'd start little projects without asking anyone, like changing furniture around or drilling stuff into the walls. One time, he painted over the wall in the living room, where my dad had measured my height every year as a kid. That mark meant something to me, but to him it was just ugly writing on the wall. I didn't even get a say in it. He didn't ask. He just did it. I didn't say anything about it, though. My grandparents kept reminding me, just hang in there. Once you're 18, you'll be in charge. I trusted them, because they were the only ones consistently in my corner. At school, I tried to stay out of trouble. I kept my head down, got decent grades, and minded my own business. I wasn't the kind of guy going to parties or anything like that. My focus was mainly on surviving the house and spending time with my grandparents whenever I could. They lived about 15 minutes away, so I'd ride my bike over there a lot. They were always happy to see me. My grandma made sure I ate real food, and my grandpa would tell me stories about my dad. Sometimes my grandpa would take me by the auto shop. Even though it wasn't running full-time like before, he made sure it stayed open. Business wasn't booming, but it was steady enough that it didn't shut down. I'd hang around, sweep the floor, or watch them fix cars. I didn't know much about cars, but I liked being there. It felt different than being at the house. Nobody ignored me there. Nobody acted like I didn't belong. Back at the house, it was like walking on autopilot. I had my little office room turned bedroom in the back. It was just enough space for a bed, a small desk, and my clothes. Meanwhile, Ethan had my old room with more space, a bigger closet, and a window facing the street. He always bragged about it to his friends. Dinner times were another thing. My mom would cook meals that Ethan and Lily liked, stuff like spaghetti, tacos, or chicken nuggets. If I said I didn't like something, she'd shrug and say, "Then make yourself a sandwich." It wasn't the end of the world, but it made it obvious where her effort was going. There were times when my stepdad would talk about the future like the house was going to be passed down to Ethan one day. He'd say things like, "When Ethan gets older, maybe we'll redo the garage for him." I'd just sit there thinking, this isn't even yours to give away. But I kept my mouth shut. I had to. If I said anything, my mom would back him up and I'd be the one in trouble. The business was my quiet motivation. Knowing it was still there kept me sane. My grandparents would tell me about how my dad worked long hours to make it succeed, how he'd save up for new equipment, and how proud he was when he opened the doors for the first time. I held on to that. It reminded me that there was more for me outside the house, that I wasn't just stuck being the kid nobody cared about. From about 13 to 17, I just coasted through like that. School, home, grandparents, repeat. I didn't really make a big scene about anything. The less I talked, the easier it was to get by. My grandparents told me more than once, just keep your head down. Once you turn 18, you'll be able to make your own choices. So that's what I did. I waited. I didn't argue when Ethan rubbed things in my face. I didn't push back when Lily took over half the living room with her toys. I didn't fight my stepdad when he acted like the house was his. I just marked the days in my head. The closer my birthday got, the more I thought about what my grandparents had told me. House and business, both mine when I turned 18. Nobody could take that from me. I didn't plan on doing anything dramatic at first, but deep down I knew once the paperwork was in my name, things were going to change. The night before my 18th birthday, I figured we'd at least have some kind of family dinner. Nothing fancy, just maybe a cake or something. Instead, while I was sitting in the living room, my mom casually mentioned they were leaving early the next morning. "Leaving where?" I asked. "To Los Angeles," she said, like it was no big deal. "We're taking the kids to Disneyland, Hollywood, the works. It's been planned for months." I just stared at her. "That's tomorrow." "Tomorrow's my birthday." She waved her hand. "You're old enough to stay home by yourself. Order some pizza or hang out with your grandparents. Don't make it a big deal." That was it. No party, no dinner, nothing. Just an announcement that she, my stepdad, Ethan, and Lily were taking off to LA on the day I turned 18. I didn't argue. At that point, I'd learned there wasn't any point. If I made a scene, she'd say I was being selfish. So I went to my room and shut the door. The next morning, I heard them loading the car. Suitcases, backpacks, all the excited voices. Ethan was going on about how he couldn't wait to see the Hollywood sign, and Lily was begging for pictures with movie stars. Then the front door slammed and the house went quiet. A couple hours later, my grandparents showed up. They walked in holding a cake, balloons, and a couple wrapped gifts. My grandma hugged me right away and said, "Happy birthday, sweetheart." My grandpa just smiled and handed me an envelope. I thought it was a card at first, but it was thicker than that. When I opened it, I realized it wasn't a birthday card. It was a stack of legal documents. My grandpa said, "This is from your father's lawyer. As of today, the house and the business are officially yours." I sat there with the papers in my hand, not really processing it at first, but then my grandpa explained everything. The trust was finished. I was the legal owner of the house I was sitting in and the auto repair shop across town. My grandma said, "This is your home now. Don't let anyone make you feel like it isn't." It hit me in that moment how different things were about to be. For years, I'd been waiting for this day, hearing my grandparents tell me to just hang in there until I was 18. Now it was real. We set the papers aside and had cake. My grandparents gave me a new laptop for school and some tools for the shop. It wasn't anything flashy, but it felt like they actually thought about what I needed. We spent the afternoon just talking. No drama, no yelling, no stepkids running around. For once, my birthday actually felt like mine. Later that night, I checked my phone. No text from my mom. No happy birthday, no call, nothing. But she had posted about their trip. Pictures of Ethan and Lily grinning in front of the Disneyland castle. A picture of her and my stepdad with palm trees behind them. Caption, "Family time in LA." That told me everything I needed to know about where I stood. Easter. After my grandparents left on my birthday, I sat in the house for a while with the papers on the table. I kept glancing at them, making sure I hadn't imagined it. My name was right there on everything. The first thing I did was walk through the house room by room. It wasn't the same place I grew up in. The living room was full of random junk. Boxes stacked against the wall, toys scattered across the floor, old clothes draped over chairs. The carpet hadn't been vacuumed in who knows how long. The kitchen was worse. Dishes piled in the sink, half-empty cereal boxes left open on the counter, sticky stains that hadn't been wiped up. The fridge had expired food in it, and the pantry was mostly filled with snacks for Ethan and Lily. It didn't look like a home someone cared about. It looked like a place people just used until it wore out. I went to what used to be my room, the one Ethan had taken. I stood in the doorway looking at how he had it set up. Posters on the walls, his video game console plugged into the TV, clothes thrown around like he didn't care. That had been my space. My dad helped paint those walls when I was a kid. Now I wasn't even allowed in it. The office-turned-bedroom I'd been living in wasn't much better. My bed barely fit in the corner, and the rest of the space was filled with boxes my mom had dumped there. Old decorations, broken appliances, random bags of junk that nobody wanted to deal with. It felt more like a storage closet than an actual bedroom. I realized as I walked through that the house hadn't felt like mine for years. It felt like I was a guest who didn't matter, stuck in the back while everyone else took over. But now, legally, it was mine. That thought stuck with me. The next day, I went with my grandpa to the shop. He wanted me to start getting familiar with how things worked. When we got there, it felt just like I remembered. The place wasn't fancy, but it was solid. The sign outside still had my dad's name on it, Gearhead Garage. Inside, Dave and Rick were working on a car. They greeted me like I was one of them, not just some kid hanging around. My grandpa showed me the office, went through the books, explained what bills were due and what money was coming in. The numbers weren't huge, but it was steady income, enough to keep the doors open, pay the workers, and cover basic expenses. He pointed to a stack of invoices. Your dad used to handle all this himself. He kept good records. You'll need to learn. I spent a couple of hours there asking questions. Dave showed me how to check basic things on a car, like oil levels and tire pressure. Rick let me help with a tire rotation. It wasn't complicated, but it felt good to do something in the shop instead of just watching. The house wasn't just mine now, but I had a business too. Something real my dad built. Something I could actually grow. On the drive back, my grandpa said, "Your father built this from scratch. He worked long days, sometimes nights. He wanted it to be something solid you could count on. Now it's yours. Don't let anyone tell you different." Hearing that hit me harder than anything my mom had ever said. When I got back to the house, it was still empty. My mom and the rest of them were still in LA, posting pictures of their trip. Selfies in front of the Hollywood sign, Ethan wearing Mickey Mouse ears at Disneyland, Lily holding a giant churro bigger than her face. Captions about best family trip ever. Nothing about me. I scrolled through their posts and then looked around at the house again. I saw the mess, the neglect, the way my room had been turned into storage, and I thought about the shop with my dad's name still on it. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. My grandparents were keeping his legacy alive, while my mom and her new family treated his house like a free ride. That night, I reread the papers, double-checking. My name was on everything. It was real. For the first time, I felt like I had real control. I wasn't just the kid in the back room anymore. I was the owner of the house and the business. And once my mom and her family came back from LA, they were going to have to face that reality. I couldn't predict how the confrontation itself would play out, but one thing we had planned was for my grandparents to arrive with the legal papers. The rest, I couldn't script. A week after my birthday, I heard the front door slam. Bags hit the floor, kids yelling about souvenirs, my mom laughing at something my stepdad said. They were back from LA, acting like nothing had happened. I stayed in my room and listened at first. Ethan was bragging about the rides at Disneyland. Lily was showing off a new stuffed animal she bought. My mom was going on about the hotel. Then my stepdad made a comment that made me get up. He said, "That trip cost a fortune, but hey, this house saves us a ton. No rent, no mortgage. It balances out." I walked into the kitchen where they were unpacking. "We need to talk," I said. My mom didn't even look up from her phone. "About what?" "This house," I said. "And the shop. They're mine now. Legally. Dad left them to me. I have the paperwork." She looked up finally, frowning. "What are you talking about? This is our home. You're just a kid." I shook my head. "No, not anymore. I turned 18. The lawyer transferred everything. I own this house. I own Dad's auto repair shop. It's all in my name." For a second, there was silence. Then Ethan laughed like it was a joke. Yeah, right. You're not kicking us out. Mom would never let that happen. Quick pause, fellas. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Thanks so much for your support. All right, back to the drama. I don't need her permission, I said. This isn't her house. It's mine. And I want you out. My mom's face turned red. How dare you talk to me like that? I raised you. I gave you a home. No, I cut her off. Dad gave me a home. You just lived here, and you treated me like an afterthought while you spoiled them, pointing toward Ethan and Lily. Ethan stood up, puffing his chest. Don't talk about us like that. You're just jealous Mom actually cares about us. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it showed exactly how far things had gone. You mean she cared enough to take you to LA on my birthday while leaving me here alone? Yeah, real caring. My stepdad stepped closer like he was trying to intimidate me. Listen, you're being a spoiled brat. You think just because some lawyer gave you a piece of paper, you can kick out your family? This is our home. We've built our life here. You built nothing, I said. You moved into my dad's house and acted like it was yours. You don't get to keep living here for free. Not anymore. My mom threw her hands up. You're ungrateful. After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? Everything you've done? I asked. You gave Ethan my room. You shoved me in the office. You used my space as storage. You didn't even call me on my birthday. But you had time to post family photos in LA. She opened her mouth to say something, but I didn't give her the chance. You have 30 days. That's it. 30 days to pack your things and leave. I'm done being treated like I don't belong in my own house. Lily started whining. But where are we supposed to go? This isn't fair. I turned to her. I didn't take your room. I didn't make these choices. Your parents did. Talk to them. My stepdad slammed his hand on the counter. You're a selfish, ungrateful kid. You'll regret this. You can't just throw us out like garbage. Yes, I can. And I will. You don't have a single claim here. Ethan muttered under his breath. Pathetic loser. Say it louder, I shot back. At least I'm not living in a house that doesn't belong to me. My mom's voice cracked as she tried a different angle. Your father would be disappointed in you. He'd never want his family torn apart like this. Before I could respond, I heard my grandparents' car pull into the driveway. They had timed it perfectly. My grandpa walked in holding a folder. He put it on the table and said, These are the official papers. The house and business are in Liam's name now. You have no legal grounds to stay here if he doesn't want you to. My mom's eyes darted between me and him. Dad, you can't be serious. You're siding with him over me? Grandma stepped in. Don't you dare twist this. You've taken advantage of him long enough. This is his father's house, not yours. And you know it. My stepdad muttered something about getting a lawyer. My grandpa shook his head. Go ahead. But you won't win. The will is airtight. We've had it checked. The kitchen went quiet again, just heavy breathing and angry looks. Finally, I said, 30 days. That's all I'm giving you. If you're not gone by then, we'll change the locks. Or Ethan stormed off to his room, slamming the door. Lily started crying, complaining it wasn't fair. My mom looked like she was about to explode, but she didn't say anything else. My stepdad just glared at me like he wanted to hit me, but knew better with my grandparents standing there. I stood there holding the papers, not backing down. For the first time, I wasn't the one who had to shrink back. The house was mine, the shop was mine, and they finally knew it. After the confrontation, the house didn't feel the same. The air was thick, like everyone was waiting for the other shoe to drop. My mom avoided me most of the time, but when she did talk, it was either guilt trips or fake calmness that flipped into shouting if I didn't give her the answer she wanted. The next morning, my grandpa and I served the formal eviction notice from the lawyer to back it up. He laid it on the kitchen table and said, You can't fight this. She skimmed the papers, her face tightening. Then she looked at me. Liam, please. You don't know what you're doing. We're a family. Families don't kick each other out. You didn't treat me like family, I said flatly. You left me alone on my birthday to go to LA. You gave away my room. You made me feel like a guest in my own house. She switched tactics fast. Tears filled her eyes. Your father would be so disappointed. He wanted me to look after you, and this is how you repay me? Throwing me out of the only home I have left? My grandma cut in before I had to respond. Don't you dare use his memory to manipulate Liam. You've had years to do right by him, and you didn't. This is his home now. The tension only grew worse over the following weeks. My stepdad stomped around the house like he owned the place, muttering under his breath every time he passed me. Ungrateful brat. Doesn't know what real responsibility is. If I tried to use the kitchen, he'd stand in the doorway and glare at me until I left. Ethan was even worse. He'd blast music in his room until late at night, leave trash in the hallway, and tell me to enjoy being all alone when we're gone. He'd make snide comments whenever my grandparents visited. "Oh, look, Liam brought backup again. Can't fight his own battles?" Lily cried constantly, whining about not wanting to move. At first, it annoyed me, but then I realized my mom was probably feeding her things to say, trying to make me feel guilty. The nights were the hardest. My phone would buzz with long texts from my mom. One night, it was paragraphs about how I was breaking apart a family. The next, she'd switch to threats. "Don't think this will be easy. We'll take you to court." Then back to begging, "Please don't do this. We have nowhere else to go." I showed the messages to the lawyer. He shook his head. "She has no case. Everything's in your name. She's hoping you'll fold." Still, the constant pressure wore on me. I'd lie awake hearing Ethan stomping around or my stepdad slamming doors. Every day felt like a standoff, waiting to see who would break first. My grandparents stayed strong. My uncle even stopped by one weekend and offered to help me change the locks if they refused to leave. Knowing I had that backup made it easier to stand my ground. As the 30 days ticked down, the tension only got worse. My mom avoided packing. The house stayed just as messy, boxes everywhere but nothing being put away. It was like she thought ignoring it would make it go away. One evening, about a week before the deadline, she cornered me in the hallway. "Liam, you don't understand what you're doing. You'll regret this when I'm gone. You'll regret pushing your own mother out." I looked her dead in the eye. "I regret that you chose Ethan and Lily over me for 6 years. I regret that you let him," I pointed toward my stepdad, "act like this house was his. But I don't regret taking back what's mine." She didn't answer. She just walked away, slamming her bedroom door. The final day came. That morning, I woke up to the sound of boxes being taped shut and bags being dragged down the hall. For a second, I thought maybe they were actually leaving quietly. But then I walked into the living room and saw the glares. Ethan muttered, "Enjoy your empty house, loser." My stepdad said nothing, just carried bags out to the car with a jaw so tight it looked painful. Lily was crying again, clutching her stuffed animal. My mom was the last to leave. She stood in the doorway holding the eviction papers. "You'll regret this," she said, her voice low and sharp. Then she walked out without another word. The front door closed, and the house went silent. For the first time in years, it actually felt like mine. When the door shut behind them and the car finally pulled out of the driveway, I just stood there in the living room, listening to the silence. The house finally stopped smothering me. No stepdad stomping around, no Ethan blasting music, no Lily whining about something, no guilt trips from my mom, just quiet. My grandparents stayed with me that day. They brought cleaning supplies and bags for trash. My uncle showed up a little later with gloves and tools. We went room by room, starting with the living room. There were piles of junk everywhere. Old magazines, broken toys, clothes nobody wore. My grandma took the trash bags and filled them without hesitation. My uncle dragged out an old recliner that was broken and dumped it by the curb. My grandpa vacuumed while I cleared out clutter. The kitchen was worse. Expired food, sticky stains, dishes stacked so high in the sink that it was amazing nothing had cracked. We scrubbed everything, threw out anything that smelled bad, and wiped down the counters until they finally looked like counters again. For the first time, the kitchen smelled clean. Then I tackled what had been Ethan's room, my old room. He'd left posters on the walls, wrappers stuffed in the drawers, and dirty clothes under the bed. I cleared it all out, took down the posters, opened the window and aired it out. By the time I was done, it didn't feel like his room anymore. It felt like mine again. The office closet I had been shoved into was next. I moved my bed out of there and into my real room. The boxes my mom had dumped in the office space got hauled into the garage until I could sort through them. When I lay down in my actual room that night, it felt like I'd reclaimed a piece of my childhood. It wasn't just about the space, it was about knowing I wasn't being pushed to the side anymore. The next few days were spent clearing out the rest of the house. My grandma redecorated little things, like putting flowers on the dining table and hanging up new curtains. My grandpa helped me fix a leaky faucet in the bathroom and tighten a loose doorknob. Every small repair felt like I was restoring the house back into something worth having. But the house wasn't the only thing on my mind. The shop was mine too, and I needed to decide what I was going to do with it. My grandpa drove me there later that week. Dave and Rick were already working on a car when we walked in. They both shook my hand and congratulated me. You're the boss now, Dave said. It felt weird hearing that, but also right. My grandpa showed me the office again, went over the books one more time, and reminded me that the shop could either keep running or shut down if I didn't want it. It's your call, Liam. Your dad worked hard for this place, but he left it for you, not for anyone else. I told him I wanted to keep it, not just because it was my dad's, but because it was something real. I wasn't about to throw away what he built. The weeks that followed weren't easy. My mom didn't disappear right away. She showed up unannounced about a week after they moved out, banging on the door. When I opened it, she said, "You can't just kick us out like this. This is my home too." I stood firm. "No, it's not. You had years to make it yours, and you didn't. You treated it like a free ride. You're not welcome here anymore." She tried to push past me, but my grandpa, who happened to be visiting, stepped in. "You need to leave," he said firmly. "This is Liam's house now. You have no right to be here." Her tone shifted from angry to desperate. "Where are we supposed to go? We have nowhere else." "That's not Liam's responsibility," my grandpa replied. "You made your choices. Now you live with them." She left that day, hurling insults as she walked down the driveway. After that, the texts and calls came. Some nights she begged me to reconsider. Other times she threatened to take me to court. Then she tried to drag extended family into it, spreading lies that I'd thrown her out without warning, that I was greedy, that I didn't care about anyone but myself. For a while, a few relatives bought her story. They called me, asking how I could do something so heartless. But then my uncle set the record straight at a family gathering. He reminded everyone that she had left me alone on my birthday to take Ethan and Lily to LA, and that she had spent years treating me like I didn't matter. Some relatives went quiet after that. Others apologized to me later. Eventually, the calls from my mom slowed down. Then they stopped altogether. Life settled into a rhythm I had never had before. The house was finally mine, and it actually felt like a home. The shop was steady, and I started spending more time learning how to run it. I started working the front desk at my own shop part-time, while also starting classes at community college. It was a lot, but it felt good. For once, I wasn't being treated like background noise in my own life. One afternoon, while cleaning out the attic, I found a dusty box shoved into the corner. The cardboard was half collapsed, like it had been up there for years without anyone touching it. I pulled it down and set it on the floor. Inside were old family photos, some folded letters, and a leather journal. The photos were what you'd expect: me as a baby in my dad's arms, him standing proudly in front of the auto shop when it first opened, a couple of shots of us in the backyard before everything went sideways. Then I opened the journal. Most of it was practical stuff: notes about ordering parts, reminders to pay certain bills, sketches of new sign ideas for the shop. But then I got to a section in the back that wasn't business. It was personal. One page stopped me cold. My dad had written about me. The handwriting wasn't neat, but you could tell he was trying to get his thoughts out fast. It said, "Liam's only 9 now, but he's already tougher than I was at that age. I hope he grows up knowing he can handle whatever comes his way. I want him to be strong, independent, and not afraid to stand up for himself. If anything happens to me, I want him to know this house is his safe place, and the shop is his future if he wants it." I read it 3 times, just staring at the words. It felt like he had written it directly to me, like he knew I'd be reading it years later. Another entry said, "Sometimes I worry that if I'm not here, he'll get pushed to the side. I don't ever want him to feel like he doesn't belong in his own home. I hope his grandparents will look out for him if I can't." That one hit even harder, because it was exactly what had happened. My mom remarried, I got shoved into the smallest room, and I'd spent years feeling like an outsider in my own house. And the only reason I made it through was because my grandparents really had looked out for me. I closed the journal and just sat there in the attic for a while. The house was quiet, the dust floating in the light from the small window. For the first time, I didn't feel angry about everything that had happened. I felt steady. Like all the decisions I'd made, the eviction, standing my ground, keeping the shop going, were exactly what he wanted me to do. That journal wasn't just old words on a page. It was proof that my dad believed in me before I even knew I'd have to carry all this weight. Months later, I got one last email from my mom. It was long, apologetic, claiming she had realized her mistakes and wanted to make things right. For a moment, I thought about replying with something more, but in the end, I kept it simple. "I hope you find happiness, but I've moved on. Please respect my boundaries." I hit send and closed the email. Now, when I walk through the door of the house, I feel peace. The living room isn't cluttered. The kitchen is clean. My room is mine again. My grandparents still visit, and sometimes we sit together at the table just talking. The shop is slowly picking up more business. I'm learning more every day. and I'm starting to see a real future for myself. This isn't the life I pictured when I was younger, but it's better than the one I had. The house and the shop aren't just property. They're my dad's legacy, and they're proof that I don't have to keep living in the shadow of people who never treated me like I mattered. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.